I want to share something. This happened to me a while ago, but it still haunts me. Growing up in a small town in the southwest, tales of supernatural were as common as the desert sun. Stories of skinwalkers, witches who could transform into animals, were whispered among friends and shared around the campfires. I always took these stories with a grain of salt, attributing them to overactive imagination fueled by fear and folklore. But everything changed one summer night during a camp trip in the woods. It was just few of us, me and my best friend Aaron and two others, Lisa and Mike. We decided to head to an area known as Red Rock Canyon, a place popular for its scenic trails and solitude. We packed our gear, excited for a weekend of hiking, stargazing, and telling ghost stories around the campfire. As we drew deeper into the woods, the landscape shifted from scrubby desert to dense pines. The air became cooler, the sound of the city fading behind us. We set up camp in a clearing, the sunlight filtering through the trees, casting long shadows on the ground. The atmosphere was serene, and as evening approached, we lit a small campfire and settled around it. That night, after dinner and a few rounds of s'mores, the conversation turned to local legends. Mike, ever the skeptic, laughed off the idea of skinwalkers. "It's just a myth," he said, tossing a twig into the fire. "People love to scare each other with ghost stories and things like that." Aaron chimed in, "But what if they're real?" My uncle swore he saw one. He leaned close to the fire, his voice dropping to a whisper. He said it looked like a coyote, but it walked on its two legs. The mood shifted, tension creeping in as we began to share our own stories. Lisa recounted her grandma's tales, warning about staying away from the woods at night. I found myself growing uneasy, glancing into the trees surrounding us for a quick peek. That first night, I slept fitfully, the sounds of the forest amplified in the stillness. The crackling of the fire was soon replaced by the rustling of leaves and distant animal calls. At one point, I woke to the sound of something heavy moving around the underbrush. But when I glanced outside my tent, there was nothing there to be found. The following morning, I brushed off my unease. We hiked during the day, exploring trails and laughing and sharing good memories. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It was like the woods were watching us. As the night fell again, the forest transformed, shadows stretching unnaturally, and the wind flew like whispers. That evening, we gathered around the fire once more, our laughter mingling with the crackling flames. But the stories had shifted. They felt more urgent and more real. Aaron mentioned something that sent a chill through me. "What if it can smell fear?" he joked and laughed. But there was a nervous edge in his voice. What if it was real? Just then, a sudden rustle broke through the night. We all froze, eyes widened, scanning the dark and the tree line. "Probably just a deer," Mike said, but I could hear the uncertainty in his tone. The second night was everything changed. After another day of hiking, we returned to our camp, tired and ready for a fire and dinner. As the sun dipped below the horizon, an eerie silence enveloped us. Even the crickets seemed to have stopped chirping. As we sat around the fire, the air grew thick with tension. I suggested We tell light stories, but Mike insisted on pushing the boundaries. Let's hear more about Skinwalkers, he said with a smirk on his face. That's when Aaron spoke up. You know, the legends say they can take on the form of any animal. They can mimic voices, even the voices of people you know. His eyes darted to the shadows. If you hear someone calling your name in the woods, please don't try to answer. A cold wind swept through the clearing, making the flame flicker wildly. We all glanced around nervously, laughter fading into an uncomfortable silence. Then, without warning, we heard it. A distant howl, deep and resonant, echoing through the tree lines. What was that? Lisa asked, her voice trembling. Probably just a coyote, I said, though I didn't believe it quite. That night, sleep eluded me once again. I lay in my tent, listening to the sound of the forest, my heart racing every time a twig snapped outside. Around midnight, I heard it again, a low, mournful howl that seemed too close for comfort. Suddenly, I was jolted awake by a loud crash, followed by a series of quick and heavy footsteps outside our camp. I sat up, my heart pounding, and I unzipped the tent cautiously. What I saw made my blood run cold. A large figure was moving through the trees, but it wasn't like any animal I had ever seen. It was crouched, low, but it stood on its two behind legs, its eyes reflecting the light from the fire. The creature paused, and for a moment I thought it was staring right at me. I quickly zipped the tent and went back inside, my hand shaking. Guys, wake up, I whispered urgently. There's something outside there. The others wake up, groggy and confused. Aaron was the first to respond. What do you mean, something? I saw it. Something standing in the woods, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. Mike, ever the skeptic, rolled his eyes. It's probably just a bear or something, dude. Go back to sleep. I couldn't shake the feeling. It was something else entirely. The air felt charged, electric with fear. The next day, we decided to cut our trip short. I was shaken, unable to forget the figure I had seen. We packed our camp quickly, Aaron staying close to me as we walked to the car. I don't want to go back to those woods, I admitted, looking over my shoulder. The trees loomed like sentinels, dark and foreboding. Let's just get out there, he replied, his voice tense. As we drove away, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. But it was short-lived. That night, as I lay in my own bed, I heard a sound outside. My name being called, softly, eerily. It sounded just like my mother's voice, but deep down, I knew. It was not my mother. It was something else. It was the Skinwalker. Hello guys. If you like this kind of videos and want to hear more, consider subscribing to this channel, and also check out other videos on this channel too. Like them, share them. Now, back to the story. The desert stretched out endlessly before me, a vast expanse of sand and stone under the merciless sun. I had come here seeking solitude, a chance to escape the noise and chaos of the city life. Little did I know, the desert held secrets far older and darker than I could have imagined. This happened to me few years back. The decision to go on this journey came after a tired and boring
month at work. I needed a break, a chance to rest my mind and reconnect with the nature. The Southwest seemed like a perfect destination. Its wild beauty and rugged terrain promised a stark contrast to the urban jungle I was used to. Armed with a backpack filled with the essentials, a tent, and a map of the remoter desert trails, I set out from my rented cabin on the outskirts of small Arizona town. The sun was just beginning to rise over the horizon, casting a golden hue across the landscape as I drove deeper into the desert. The road eventually gave way to a dusty trail that wound through the rocky hills and scrubby old trees. I parked my car at the trailhead marked with a weather beaten sign, the only indication that humans had ventured this far into the wilderness. I shouldered my backpack and set off on foot, following the trail as it meandered through the narrow canyons and across dry creek beds. The silence was palpable, broken only by the occasional call of a distant bird or the whisper of the wind through the spare vegetation. Hours passed in solitude as I hiked deeper into the desert, the sun climbing higher in the sky with each step. The heat was oppressive, but I welcomed the physical exertion. It helped clear my mind of the stress and worries that had plagued me in the recent weeks. As midday approached, I found a shaded alcove beneath an overhanging rock to rest and eat a small lunch that I already packed in my backpack. The coolness of the shadow was a welcoming relief from the sun, and I took the opportunity to consult my map and plan the rest of my route. According to the map, there was a secluded canyon not far from my current location, a place known for its ancient secrets and rumored to be haunted by spirits of the past. Intrigued by the prospect of exploring such a historic site, I decided to alter my course slightly and make way toward the canyon. The trail to the canyon was rough and overgrown, evidence that few travelers venture this way, but the promise of discovering something ancient and mysterious drove me forward, my curiosity outweighing any apprehension I felt about exploring such a remote area alone. As I descended to the canyon, the temperature dropped noticeably, the rocks walls casting deep shadows that seemed to swallow the sunlight. The air was thick with the scent of sagebrush and juniper, mingling with the faint aroma of dust and ancient stone. I followed the trail deeper into the canyon, the walls narrowing until they loomed overhead like ancient sentinels. Occasional glimpses of drawings on the canyon wall, ancient artwork left behind by the indigenous people who once called this land home. Each image told a story of hunting, spiritual rituals, and the cycle of nature, life, and death. As I rounded a bend in the trail, the canyon opened up into a small clearing dotted with weathered boulders and twisted juniper trees. In the center of the clearing stood a cluster of rock formations, natural pillars that rose from the desert floor, looked like the remains of a forgotten civilization. It was here that I first sensed something amiss, a subtle shift in the air, a feeling of being watched from unseen eyes. I paused, my senses on high alert as I scanned the clearing for any sign of any movements. The desert seemed eerily still, as if holding its breath in anticipation. A low growl echoed through the canyon, sending a chill down my spine. It was a sound unlike anything I ever heard before, a primal, animalistic sound that seemed to reverberate through every rock beneath my feet. Instinct screamed at me to turn back and retreat to the safety of the trail, but curiosity held me rooted to the spot. A sudden movement caught my eye, a shadow fitting between the boulders at the edge of the clearing. I strained to see through the dappled light, my heart pounding in my chest. There, amidst the rock, stood a figure, a silhouette that seemed to be blent with the surrounding shadows. Its form shifting and indistinct. Fear gripped me as I realized what I was witnessing. A skinwalker, a creature of Navajo legend, known for its ability to take any form of animals and human alike. I had heard tales of these beings, warning passed down through generations to those who dare to venture too far into the desert's embrace. The creature moved with an unnatural grace, its movements fluid and predatory, its eyes gleamed with an otherworldly light, fixed on me with an intensity that made my blood run cold. I fumbled for the small knife tucked into my belt, its reassuring weight a stark reminder of my vulnerability in the face of such a creature. The skinwalker emitted another growl, louder this time, as if challenging my presence in its domain. I stood my ground, my hands trembling slightly as I held the knife in front of me like a talisman against the unknown. Sweat trickled down my spine despite the coolness of the canyon air, my senses overwhelmed by the primal fear that gripped me. Minutes stretched into eternity as we stared each other down, a silent standoff between human and beast. The skinwalker's form shimmered, then flickering between human and animal, a grotesque fusion of both that defied the law of nature. It seemed uncertain whether to approach or retreat, caught in the liminal space between curiosity and caution. I took a step backward, my eyes never leaving the creature before me. The skinwalker's gaze followed my movement, its expression unreadable yet filled with an ancient wisdom that transcended mortal understanding. The tension in the air was palpable, a charged silence that hung between us like a veil. With a final piercing stare, the skinwalker turned and melted back into the shadows from whence it came. Its departure was swift and silent, leaving behind only the echo of its growl and the lingering ascent of desert sage. The clearing seemed to exhale in relief, the oppressive atmosphere dissipating like smoke on the wind. I stood there for a long while, my heart still racing and my mind reeling from the encounter. Eventually, I gathered my wits and retraced my steps back to the main trail. Every rustle of the leaves and creak of branches sending fresh waves of apprehension through me. As I emerged from the canyon into the fading light of dusk, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had glimpsed something ancient and malevolent, a creature born of the wilderness itself, a testament to the untamed depth of the world we so often overlook. To this day, I carry the memory of that encounter like a shadow in the corner of my mind, a reminder that there are forces in the world that defy explanation, that lurk just beyond the edges of our understanding, waiting for the unwary to stray too close into their domain. And though I have returned to the desert many times since then, I tread lightly, always mindful of the unseen Isis that watches from the shadows and whispered warning that linger in rustling leaves. So if you ever going anywhere solo, be cautious. You don't know what rustling behind the bushes and watching you behind from a tree or a boulder. So be careful out there. Hello guys, this is Malayali Wendigo. If you like this story, please consider subscribing to this channel and check out other videos in this channel too. And if you have any comments or any suggestions and any improvements I need to make in this channel, please feel free to post them in the comment section. So, see you in the next video. Till then, be safe. Bye.
Hope you guys like this video. If you did, please consider subscribing to this channel and enable the bell icon so you don't miss new uploads. And also check out other videos in this channel too. Like them and share them. And if you have any suggestions or any improvements I need to make in this channel, please post them in the comment section. Till next time, this is Malayali Wendigo. Bye.